Hello and welcome to another episode of the SEO Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Itamar Blauer, and today I'm joined with Koray Tuğberk Gübür, and I do apologize because I probably butchered his name, but he is the founder of Holistic SEO, and it's so great to have you here, Koray. How are you doing?
Thanks so much. I am fine, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for Thanks for the invitation.
Awesome. All right, and today we're gonna. I feel like I say this with every episode, but I honestly feel like this is one of the hottest topics right now
Yeah.
in SEO, semantic SEO. We're gonna go through everything, or as much as we can do in the time that we have. So Koray, do you want to first start us off by giving a definition, just so everyone is on the same page? So, what is semantic SEO?
Okay. So first of all, you're right. It is actually important to be on the same page for the definition because otherwise we can't communicate. For example, when it comes to the technical SEO, the definition is not that clear. Sometimes people include the page speed in technical SEO, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they just focus on some people even include the page rank calculations for technical SEO as well. They unite it with data science, and everyone says something else. So I hope the same thing doesn't happen to the semantics or semantic SEO, and it is a relatively new concept. But basically, semantic SEO is the SEO effort that has been done for semantic search engines, a search system that relies on the meanings and also understanding the words. So instead of just calculating the overall relevance of a document to a complete or incomplete phrase, we actually try to understand the possible sentences that can be generated from the queries, and then we take their meanings and then actually we try to match them with different types of documents with high level of accuracy and comprehensiveness.
Wow. Okay. So I'm trying to mentally write that down. And to anyone watching, feel free to replay that because I think that's quite important to, like you said, to kind of understand and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
But can you also explain like why it's important? To like why is semantic SEO important, especially for SEOs? It's like why did they need to know or care about this concept?
So semantic SEO is the most important SEO vertical at the moment because the search engine already became nearly, not completely, but it is one of the main profiles of Google. It is a semantic search engine. It is a hypertextual search engine. It is also a social search engine, local search engine, news search engine, image search engine, but also it actually, or Google does all these things in a semantic way. For example, every week, the Google AI research teams and Google Brain teams, they publish maybe like 10 different researches and tests. And at least half of it actually relates to the semantics in somehow. Sometimes it is about understanding an image or image label boxes, or sometimes it is about actually correlation of the video frames to the textual phrases, or a video frame labeling, or sometimes it is about web page segmentation. So even layout actually can be about semantics too. According to the layout, the meanings of the sentences or discourse integration between them, again, it can change. Usually when we say semantic SEO, people try to focus on the text on the web page. It is actually entire website or entire web entity. So as a short definition, a web entity consists of your social media profiles, your identity, your website, and anything belong to you in digital environment. When it comes to website, it is just a website. So in traditional understanding, SEOs focus on website, but in semantics, we actually focus on the web entity. Your reflection on the digital from physical world, it is very much more important because search engine tries to index physical world rather than just digital web pages at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very important thing to mention there. So in terms of having the understanding that, well, as SEOs, we need to think more about entity's sake, maybe as opposed to just kind of independent keywords, which you still get lots of people who will try and focus on. They're like, okay, we're going to do what we do because we want to rank for this keyword. But then that's thinking quite like that's more of a tunnel vision approach, I would say. And when we're kind of using the concepts of semantic SEO, where you need to think broader, you need to think more holistically, pun, holistic SEO. You need
Yeah.
to think more holistically, comprehensively about this, because if you use that tunnel vision approach, I assume that won't be good for the long term.
It won't, because I will mention a name, an important name, but most of the industry, I believe, they don't know the name. The name is CJ Rijks van Bergen. He is a Danish from Glasgow University, and he is the founder of the Information Retrieval Club, and he is the founder or inventor of the concept of uncertain inference. So when we look at the information retrieval for the last 20 years, the search engines use two main systems. One is information retrieval, the other one is PageRank. They have taken the overall relevance, then they have filtered them according to the PageRank, and they assumed that, okay, these are the most quality ones because they have links. So now, actually, after that, they also try to diversify the PageRank, like context-sensitive PageRank, topic-sensitive PageRank, user-sensitive PageRank, reasonable server model, or different types of model. Even we have aristocratic PageRank and rank merge or democratic PageRank. There are many concepts there, and they all rely on links, and they do different types of tests to understand which link graph reflect the real quality. So now, actually, search engines have TPUs. TPU means tensor processing unit, which is really quick for text processing, language understanding. So it means that they have way much more computational power right now. So it means they can use semantics, they can use NLP. So with that said, actually, the uncertain inference means that rather than focusing on a single query or a single phrase, or even stemming and lemmatization of that phrase, or variations or different word orders of that phrase, they actually take entire query network and all of the query and document clusters, and they try to understand your state. So it is called actually a Markovian state of the user. It means that whenever you make a search, the search engine doesn't try to just satisfy that search session. They actually try to satisfy entire possibility of the search behaviors. It is also called information foraging, another topic. But basically, the uncertain inference tries to understand that there is always uncertainty in the queries, and according to all of the possible probabilities, they try to create the best possible SERP according to your all possible states. So that's why in semantics, even if something doesn't appear in the queries, you will need to again use it. That's why I always tell that even if it is a zero search volume phrase, it might help you. And again, according to the uncertain inference, a search engine always needs a knowledge base, a factual repository, because without knowing the physical world, you can't understand what they mean exactly. So that's why you will need to cover entire data sets, groups from physical world, and then you will be able to actually create better understanding for the queries or question generation and answer pairing with it, and also even dialogue generation or different types of suggestions as well. It was a long answer, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the interesting part, because there's a lot that actually gets involved within this kind of concept, and also, like you're pointing out, different sorts of things. So let's think about it from the SEO's perspective. What should SEOs do if they want to optimize for semantic search engines?
Okay, the first thing that actually they should do is they have to leave the old traditional belief systems, first of all, because you have a new search engine right now, and you can't think as in the old days. You can't always think that when you put a keyword there, it might not rank higher. And even if you just put more questions, even if you take the people also as questions, again, it might not rank. Because if you don't understand the search engine, if you are not able to communicate with it, you won't be also be able to convince it to. So if you want to optimize for semantic SEO or with semantic SEO, you will need to understand the NLP concepts. First of all, try to understand what a part of speech tag, and try to understand what is the dependency tree in sentences. How a search engine can understand actually sentiment structure of in a sentence, how they can understand whether the sentence is humor or not. What is information graph and information content, how it can be extracted or created. What is the difference between information retrieval and information extraction, for example, and how Google actually prepared these transition since the last 20 years. So if you're able to understand these things, when you look at the SERP, you will be able to rank easily, and you will be able to also create different types of preparations for possible search engine perception changes as well. For example, one of the websites that I have published before, Wisdom.net, it has reached out to the 500,000 clicks amount. And even the war in Ukraine benefited the website, despite it is a travel website, also actually visa consultation company. It happened because I always create my semantic content networks according to the different query processing methods. One of them focus on only the trending queries. So whenever a country and a country entity and attributes of it are being searched more, I will always be relevant still. So from different perspectives, if you are able to create a proper contextual vector, a proper, let's say, heading vector, and answer structures and internal link structures, the website always will stay relevant. And also after a point, the search engine will have to rank it. So if I need to give you 3 suggestions, learn NLP, at least the concepts, and at the same time, try to write by yourself, at least at the beginning. Try to understand how the search engine would actually parse these sentences, and then try to create a couple of websites without backlinks, and then check how the rankings change based on that, and what kinds of a time you need to wait until you get your first feature snippet. People also ask question, and when you have a feature snippet from a query, how the different connected queries are being affected from that. If you're able to observe these things, you will see that they are connected to each other in a balanced way.
Wow, that's really, really important. And I think as a follow-up to that as well, what are some resources that you've used when you've been kind of learning this stuff?
Oh, there are too many resources actually, Itamar, but the biggest one is actually, of course, the Bill Slavsky, because I have read his first, from my side, the first time I have read the Bill Slavsky, like in 2016, then I was like, what is this? Because I was a black at SEO then, and one of my PBNs were in trouble. And while making a kind of research for understanding the links, I have seen an article from him, and he was actually talking about the clickability or click possibility for page rank calculation. So I thought it makes sense actually. And then I just click another URL, another URL, another URL. The guy was explaining everything for free. And then it was a magical state for me. Then I dived into the semantics as well, because it was so obvious that they will do this. And again, the other day I published a research about the authorship in the coming years, actually, even if they don't announce it, or probably they will announce it, I believe, because Google product managers, they like announcing the things that they do. And authorship related things will be improved in a public way too, because it is obvious from their researches and the tests. And when it comes to the semantics too, most of the time I used Google patents, but it is not for everyone, because not everyone can read these legal papers, or even if they read, they might not understand or connect it to the other ones. So if you read a kind of intermediary document cluster like SEObythesea.com, my case studies, it will be more helpful for them. But from my point of view, I used Google research papers and Google patents or Yahoo patents or other search engines methodologies, and also their books as well. For example, Tristan Upstill has a great book called Ranking Based on Web Evidence. He tries to explain how they would rank if they would just focus on web evidence, and how the page rank would intervene there. And it is a great book actually for any kinds of SEO to understand the point of the search engines or search engine engineer. And besides that, you can also use Christian Balzok. He has a book for entity-oriented search, and it is really a useful book. I guess it was more than 400 pages, but it is a really useful book, because it starts from defining the concepts, then he actually structure and constructs a different mindset for semantic search, and then he explains how a search engine would behave there or should behave there. So these resources, I believe they will be really good. And another thing is, do not focus on tools, do not focus on automation that much, just focus on understanding. Then you can try to create your own methodologies easier.
Wow, that's fantastic. Very insightful, Corey.
Thank you, Itamar.
The last question I want to get to is, what is the future then of semantic SEO? Like, how do you envision it developing?
The future. So when it comes to the semantics, it's pretty obvious that they improve their language models every day. For example, this Google I/O, they have actually announced another language model, pathway language model, but in an interesting way, even the Search Engine Journal or Search Engine Land or nowhere mentioned it, and I don't know why. I guess we are fed up with the updates and the new things right now. We even don't care about it. We are insensitive to the new things in SEO, I believe, right now. And I understand the industry for that, because every week we have something new. So another language model, it's not a problem. But if you remember the bird, it was a big deal. And now we even 1,000 more times stronger things than the bird, and we don't care it. So it's like it happened like in the corona, you know. At the beginning, everyone was scared. Now no one cares. So the Google updates became like that. And for the future of the semantic SEO, I can tell that because of the AI and AI generated content, the AI detectors will be more important. Content farms will come back, and document templates and document template generation will be a really important thing with programmatic SEO. And at the same time, my concept, I have found and introduced two concepts to do SEO besides others. One is topical map, the other one semantic content networks. People will start to understand these two slowly, very much better, once they actually start to create their own network in an automated way, if it is possible with AI. And then actually they will understand, if I change certain types of word sequences, my rankings change in certain ways. Once they understand that, they will actually dive into the teeny tiny details in a bulk way. And thanks to AI, we will see that the authorship and true expertise, it will be very much more important. And the page rank, again, it might increase its weight on the ranking algorithms because of this situation, because I can create the best possible article for treatment of the cancer with AI, but I am not a doctor. So it means that just by looking at the contents itself, it's not that easy to see who is the real expert anymore. So content might not be that much expertise or trust signal in the future, since AI can do this. But there is also one more thing that's called author vectors, or personalized word sequences. In other words, when I write something, I write it in a certain way. All of my style actually follows an order. So Google actually can differentiate my authorship to another one or from another one by just looking at these things. And Google might dive in to these type of situations. And of course, this wouldn't be a default algorithm for every industry or for every website. They will do this for the most important websites. As you know, Google actually breaks its index into the three tiers. It has been explained in Search of the Record podcast too. They put the most important servers and the most quality websites into the tier one, because they know that they are the most important websites. So it also shows that they don't use every algorithm for every website too, because it doesn't worth it. So if you are an important person from an important website or any kind of web chunk, it means that actually they will try to understand you further and they will try to focus on you further as well. So for the future, I can tell programmatic SEO, AI, and semantic content networks and teeny tiny content configurations with big differences, and also the increased page rank understanding and prominence. These are the things that we will see. And of course, we will need to read very much more things, to be honest, as well, because this can't continue like that. After a point, people, I believe, they will understand that enough with the canonicals, enough with the LSI, enough with the other popular concepts that don't generate any kinds of result. So I believe after a point, they will understand that they will need to think like a technician and an engineer just for the language understanding, so that they can create the best possible content for the search engine's understanding and also users as well, of course.
Yeah, those are some great suggestions there, especially, how these things can actually come into with other terms that are well known in the industry, like EAT, and how that has an effect, and how Google and search engines can sort of detect this better or improve these systems over time. And also the thing you mentioned about reading. I mean, I know you've read hundreds and hundreds of papers and books around this stuff. So that's definitely something that we need to do more of, I think, as an industry. But Koray, thanks so much for providing all of these fantastic insights. It really has
Thank you.
been a very, very insightful talk. And I've definitely picked up a lot of things from talking with you. Where can people find you on the web if they want to learn more or be able to ask you any questions?
Yeah, they can actually check my official website, holisticSEO.digital. They can also check my Twitter account, Koray Gübür. They can find me with that name, and they can also reach out me from LinkedIn or with my email as well. But I can tell that I don't have that much time for answering the DMs. But again, if they want to reach out, they can actually reach out still. If I don't have meetings like 12 hours a day, I can answer. And like that.
You're a legend, Koray. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me on the SEO Unplugged podcast, and thanks for the listeners
Thanks
out
for
there.
having me.
Thank you. We'll catch you in the next episode. Hey, you've reached the end of this video, but don't worry, there's plenty more great content that you can watch right now. All you have to do is click one of the 2 video links on the left side of the screen. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to never miss out on future uploads.